Hey kids, thanks for watching. We're going to take on the most complicated thing I know how to do in the kitchen. This is going to take a month. I'll probably break this down into maybe 4 parts because, well, I don't have enough media for 43,000 minutes of video. You'd get bored with it anyway. We're going to make beer. Yeah, beer. So, should you make beer? Well, when I go into a pub for the first time, my first question is, what have you got that I've never heard of? You know, the thing about beer is there's only a few components to it, but each of those comes in a variety of applications, let's say. For instance, you might have barley, you might have wheat. If you have barley, it may have been cooked for 20 minutes, it may have been cooked for an hour. There's a lot of different ways to control the ingredients, and you end up with, I don't know, 100,000 different kinds of beer maybe. Now, if on the other hand, you drink something like this exclusively, then I don't know that it's worth the trouble. This is an amazing product in some ways. They have 32 breweries around the country. They produce enough beer every year to give 5.5 bottles to every man, woman, and child on the planet. Not the country, the planet. If it all went into bottles, they'd make something like 46 billion bottles of beer every year. Amazing thing about this is that every single bottle tastes exactly the same. That's impossible. That's magic. Nobody knows how they do that. And the thing is, if this is your idea of the perfect beer, you'll never be able to make this at home. And really, there wouldn't be any point. You'd be missing the whole adventure of making your own beer. The aspect of what am I going to end up with at the end of a month? A lot of that to it. Interesting little aside about this, you can buy this almost everywhere, but not in Germany. Germany has something called the beer purity laws, and they essentially say that beer can only be made with water, barley, hops, and yeast. They make this with rice. Yeah, rice. Yeah, rice. So what is beer? There's a great book called The History of the World in 6 Glasses by Tom Standage, and it covers beer, wine, distilled spirits, coffee, tea, and Coca-Cola, and how each of those changed the world. Beer is the first alcoholic product, and the thought is it probably happened by accident. If you took a bucket of water, threw some barley in it, put it out in the backyard, it would turn into beer. It wouldn't be very good beer, but it would be beer. What happens is that one of the things floating around in the air is yeast. When you put the barley in the water, it releases carbohydrates into the water. When the yeast hits it, now yeast is alive, but it's dormant most of the time. The yeast hits the water, it wakes up, it starts eating the carbs, and then it poops out carbon dioxide and alcohol. Now, if you're making bread, the carbon dioxide causes the bread to rise, and the alcohol evaporates off in the baking process. In beer, it's exactly the opposite. The carbon dioxide is vented off into the atmosphere. The alcohol stays in the beer because we're doing this at low temperature. We're not heating it up after the initial cook. So, you know, back to that bucket of water. Somewhere in ancient history, somebody did something like that, accidentally left it out. They decided to drink it. They liked the effect, and over the next millennia, it was modified and refined into a product that we now call beer. So, what's it take to make beer? Well, time. You know, the initial cook takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then mostly you'd sit around and wait for things to happen. It's going to take about a month before you've got an actual finished drinkable product. There's going to be some initial expense. There's some hardware involved. You're going to need a pretty good sized pot. I use one that's about 3 gallons for the initial cook. Big plastic bucket for your fermenter. It's got to have a spigot in the bottom, but otherwise it's not really anything special, just a plastic bucket. You need a carboy. This is a glass container that the product will sit in for about 3 weeks to age. Then you're going to need bottles. You're going to need a bottling gizmo to put the caps on. You're going to need caps. You need some siphon hose. There's all these weird little ancillary things you need. You're going to spend somewhere between $100 and $150 on hardware. So we got that, and that lasts pretty much forever. The software, I'll call it, the grains and the yeast and the malts, somewhere between $35 and $50 for a batch, and what that will get you is 5 gallons of beer. That's about 50 12-ounce bottles. Going to work out somewhere $4, $5, $6 a six-pack. But you don't really do this for the savings. You know, it is a little bit cheaper than what good beer costs in the store. But that's not why you do it. You do it for the experiment factor and the idea that you're going to make a beer that nobody's ever had before. I mean, even if you follow the directions exactly, there's always some wiggle room in it, and you will create a beer that nobody's ever had before. A lot of people get really into this and join clubs where, you know, you find a dozen like-minded people and you all brew beer and get together and sample each other's products, see what you get. Beer brewing is it's really complicated, but it's also really fun. It's a really dynamic hobby. If you're an old guy like me sitting around with nothing to do, hey, you know, you can always use one more hobby, right? Okay, so that's the introductory video. That's what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. I'm going to do the initial cook here somewhere in the next couple of days, and we'll get that video up right away. On that one, we'll actually go through the different ingredients and show you how they work. This should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you are too. Thank you again for watching. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, share. You know, that's how we make the channel grow, is by sharing the ideas with other people. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to having you here for the next installment. Peace.